Welcome.
Welcome to
Cigar.
Cigar.
Public.
Welcome to Cigar Public.
Hi, I'm Michael Prisdale with Master Your Ash. Welcome to Cigar Public.
Michael, thank you very much for coming by the booth. It's a pleasure to have you, sir.
Absolutely, brother. It's
So-
my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You know, I'm surrounded by all of these brand owners and people in the industry, and I have had a couple of cigar reviewers in this booth since we started, and I always get a little bit excited when I get another reviewer in here because that's how I started. I got in just doing reviews on my own because what the hell, I'll give it a shot.
Right.
Talk about how you decided, hey, I want to get into this because I think I could do a good job with this.
So, cigars for me are first and foremost in my life. I started smoking cigars at the legal age of 18 in Las Vegas,
Right.
let's say.
At the time, that was the legal age.
At the time, that was the legal age, way back when. And after 15, almost 20 years of smoking cigars, I had kind of an idea that at one point in time in my life, I would love to parlay my affinity for smoking cigars and pairing spirits
Right.
with them. My living in Las Vegas, having a very dense amount of alcohol available in any given square foot,
Right.
I eventually found my way into the spirits industry. So I was the youngest certified USBG mastered mixologist in the country at one point in time. Still,
Wow.
maybe possibly at the time that I did it was
Right.
the youngest. And in doing so, I worked on a lot of beverage programs here in Las Vegas, around the state of Nevada. I was fortunate to be picked up and scouted by Southern Glaziers, which is the company that I work for now. And in doing so, working on beverage programs for all of these major hotels, you learn very fast that you have to check your ego at the door. And it's not necessarily about what you perceive as the very best tasting cocktail or the very best ingredient. It's about what the 8 million plus visitors a year to Las Vegas are going to really resonate with.
Right.
And I found that there were so many parallels with smoking cigars and making drinks per se, just like making dishes in a kitchen, right? You have certain ingredients and certain flavors that you notice and pick up on at certain points of the dish or of the cocktail, and you want to amplify those. Right? So I come to it from the standpoint that Master Your Ash will always be a channel where I give recommendations based on my palate, based off of what I perceive as far as the cigars go, and how best to pair them with spirits or with cocktails or with non-alc, because you truly get the most flavor out of your cigar to me when you have something to pair it with. Right?
Absolutely,
A beverage
yes.
of some kind. Doesn't matter if it's coffee, doesn't matter if it's alcohol, but absolutely something to kind of cleanse the palate, open up some different receptors, right?
Yeah, and that's something that I noticed about you that I felt like there was kind of a gap in cigar reviews on YouTube and social media. There weren't a whole lot of people who were even attempting, let alone do it as well as you do,
Thank you.
have cigar pairings with beverage choices.
Right.
You do it at a very, very consummate, very professional level, better than anyone I've seen at this point. And how do you go about figuring out, okay, this cigar, I get this from this palette of flavors from this stick. What's your next step when it comes to beverage pairings? Or do you start with the beverage and say, I think a stick like this would go well with this particular cocktail?
I never have a preconceived notion about where I'm going to go. So on my channel, most of the time I wait until the final third before I reveal the pairing. It's
Gotcha.
not because YouTube's paying me to do that, ad revenue, or a time frame. It's because I can perceive something in the first third that might that's really going to go well with it. And then the cigar changes on me in the second third, and I'm like, wait a second, hold on, I want something different now. And then, by the final third, I kind of have a general idea, and I feel as though I can make an educated kind of recommendation to the audience to say, okay, now that we're here, now that we've experienced these flavors, this is what I think will go best, because I'm taking it from the standpoint that I want the beverage not necessarily that's going to really be harmonious in the first third or contrasting or anything like that. I just want it to overall fit the build, right?
Balance is everything.
Balance is everything. And, there's definitely been, there's pairings out there that will work in the first third of a cigar that you might not want in the final third.
Right.
And that's okay. I've had it happen to me live on the show where I've tasted something in the first third and I'm like, yep, this is where I'm going to go. And then by the final third, when I actually do it, I'm like, damn, this sucks. I can't do this. And, likewise in the standpoint that I also looked at a lot of the reviewers because I wasn't someone that followed them very closely when I started the channel. Where I could find reviewers that were actually recommending spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And you always did a great job of that as well. At the end of the show, I think these 3 things will probably pair best with this.
Right.
Recommended pairing for this. And that was something that I internalized too, because I was like, Joe, he makes sure that he always lists it at the end as an adjunct to the show, like, this would be a great idea for you to try out.
Kind of a little epilogue there.
Yeah. 100%.
And I wouldn't go very in-depth because I know my own limitations. I'm not a beverage aficionado. I'm just not. Mm-hmm. My focus is the cigar. And and again, you spoke to this, and it spoke to me earlier where you said, this is what works with my palate.
Right.
And that's all that any reviewer can really do.
That's it.
And that's something that I try to emphasize to people in my reviews whenever I do them for YouTube is, this is what I got. Mm-hmm. See what you get. Yeah. And hopefully our palates will align at some point. That's my hope, that we can make that sort of connection. But if you get something different, excellent. The more diversity of perspective on a particular cigar or beverage, the better. I like the way that even disagreements can start conversations.
Right.
That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, and I think that, taste in any form is subjective, mm-hmm. right? There could be a dish that you love at a restaurant that you recommend to a friend and you follow up with them and they're like, yeah, it was good. And you're like, oh man, they really hate it. They did not like that, And that's kind of where I think that we can give recommendations that hopefully fall on a parallel with somebody, like you said. But also, we were given these platforms, and initially I had a different idea for how I was going to do each pairing. And I went back to the drawing board, took a couple of steps, and said, you know what, I think that maybe this would benefit the audience better. So not being steadfast in the approach or I'm really attached to these principles,
right.
but allowing the feedback to come from the audience too and constantly evolving is a big deal for anybody who's going to get into cigar reviewing in general, right?
Yes.
Because they're going to also let you know from their perspective, and some of them may have been smoking more or longer than you have, right?
Absolutely.
And
having that the ability to be humble in this is important too, because without being humble, you really kind of block yourself off from your full learning potential.
Right.
Acknowledging that you can still learn is the first step in learning in the first place.
Yeah, and part of that too is demystifying some of the classic adage, we pair scotch with our cigars because that's what we do.
Right.
No, there's so many great things out there to experience as far as pairings go, whether it's Belgian chocolate or, something completely macaroons. Go great.
Yeah.
There's such a wide variety out there. And now that we're, more globally integrated than we've ever been in human civilization, it's, these 2 things that we've had for forever, alcohol and tobacco. Right? That we've carried as commodities of civilization. That's why I have that as the first, line on the channel. I feel like we always need to talk about them as much as we can together.
There's so much to discover with them, even still, and probably will for all eternity till the end of time.
Sir.
Any advice you would like to give to anybody who is interested in spirits, interested in the world of cigars, something that would help them to kind of calibrate their vision going into these lifestyles that would help make their experience that much more enjoyable?
I would say don't ever hold on to any type of to any type of this is the only thing that I want to pair, or this is the only thing that I want to drink, or this is the only cigar that I want to smoke. There are so many brands out there in both facets, right? In the alcohol world, in the cigar world, and truly it's about following your heart and also the journey, because
Yes.
that's really what it is. After smoking cigars for 20 years, I'm still so excited to come
Yes.
to these and meet
Yes.
the smallest booth and the largest booth
Right.
the same way, because that's how I interpret this whole entire culture. Is it's about experiences, and you know what? There might be somebody who you don't think has something to share with you, and you're wrong, because they can totally turn you on to something
Yes.
brand new and unique.
Yeah, and that I've said this to many people before. I'll say it again. I am always interested to see what tobacco can do, and it
Yeah.
can do a lot. Michael, thank you very much. Great
Absolutely,
stuff, brother.
Joe.
Always a pleasure.
Pleasure. Great to
We'll
meet
see
you in
on the
person.
next review, buddy.
Yeah, man.